Thank you for this giving according to the interview. And the first question for the participant of the conference is the following. Have you ever visited Russia before?
No, this is the first time I've ever been to Russia, even though I'm from Germany, and Germany isn't too far from Russia in the end.
Could you tell us about your academic research and topics you are studying in the recent times?
Yes, so I'm currently working on a genealogy of cosmopolitan thought. Cosmopolitanism is the idea that the world should be ruled according to some, let's say, broadly speaking, liberal principle. Whenever you start writing a genealogy of such an idea, you're not just writing the history of the idea, but you're also asking for what reasons a certain kind of mindset appears and how this can be explained.
Do you think that antique philosophy is useful for the modern society? And if it is useful, how it can influence modern society?
I think it's a very good question, and it also needs a bit of elaboration. So if I talk about my topic, so the idea of cosmopolitanism, quite often people start with either with Kant's idea of perpetual peace. Some people also go back to Stoic philosophers. However, my thesis would be that Plato was indeed the first, not really cosmopolitan, but somehow I use the term über-cosmopolitan philosopher. So what he faced, these were sophists, and what he says about the sophists, that these are people who want to govern Greek and barbarians alike. So this term of Greek and barbarians alike is obviously an expression for the whole world. And what he says about those people who want to govern Greek and barbarians alike is that they have got a good philosophical education idea, but somehow they did not really go into philosophy. And so what he's doing, this is one of my theses in the Politeia, that he is in a way silencing these cosmopolitan sophist voice he heard at his time.
And can you describe the situation of the studies, antique studies in your country, and which is the state of it now? Is the attention paid to the antique philosophy during the philosophical studies, or not much?
Yes, Germany is in a specific situation. The study of antique philosophy or of the classics used to be very strong in the idea of the Gymnasium, which is the German equivalent of the high school. And this form of humanistic education really dominated all of the 19th until the beginning of the 20th century. However, it first had a first crack at the time of World War I. So before World War I or during World War I, everyone in Germany was convinced that they would win the war, as all the German officers spoke some Greek. In the end, it turned out being able to speak some Greek, even was probably a rather rudimentary form of Greek, didn't really help to win wars, and it didn't really help to foster the idea of German dominance over Europe. So this then started to crack, and quite an interesting discussion emerged after World War I. And there's a second phase after World War II, and Greek studies diminished again, but it never really totally ceased. So there still is quite a high amount of people who study ancient Greek and Latin at the schools. The current challenge is probably rather to combine this German heritage, which is a complicated and contested heritage, to combine this heritage with the post-colonial heritage we also face nowadays. And this is the idea of the Humboldt Forum in Berlin. So the Humboldt Forum in Berlin is the idea to have, instead of the old Prussian castle, a place where different cultures could come together and come into some form of dialogue. This is not just a cultural idea, but this, I think, would also be the task in Germany for the years to come.
Imagine you have a possibility to change a little bit the system of education of the antique philosophy in your country. How do you think you will modify it? What will you add? What will you back?
The danger of studying the ancient philosophy is often that you only study ancient philosophy to venerate the ancients, but don't really learn how the ancient could have an impact on current life. And this is something which always needs to be done, so to bring these together in a combination. And I think this is also possible in the ancient world, to realize that the ancient world was not just confined to Athens and Rome, but this was a sphere of commerce, a sphere of ideas, and this sphere of commerce and ideas stretched over the whole Mediterranean region, and it also included at some points Africa. So it's studying the ancients would also be one way to overcome, so to say, Western centeredness, which we sometimes find, especially in the German tradition.
And the questions concerning St. Petersburg, the place where the International Plato's Society Conference takes place. Could you tell about your impressions, personal impressions about St. Petersburg, and which atmosphere do you feel, and how can you describe it?
Yes, I like the especially the cultural vibe of the city. This is something which you can see at every corner. So the tradition, and you can also read about the different traditions, and sometimes hear or see them in concerts or in performances. What I sometimes miss when I'm here is I miss a bit of a contemporary culture. So what I miss would be something like someone like Shostakovich, who is composing against the stream of the time. So he is doing something, even though he was a famous composer at the time. At the same time, he was someone who was also always in danger, and someone who tried to do something against this. And please wish something to Russian colleagues. Yeah, my wishes for the Russian colleagues would be one in German and one in Greek. So the German would be Mut, and the Greek one would be polemos. So the first one would be courage, and the second one would be contestation. So having both together, so having the courage to do something, and also having the courage to enter into a contestation, and also into political contestations. Could you tell about the topic of your presentation, and why have you chosen this topic? Yes, so the topic of my presentation is actually the topic, what is justice? One could think that this is a timeless question, a question that has always been asked. Indeed, when we read about this question and read about the question in Plato, we realize that Plato's question is more specific, especially if we consider his background of his visits in Syracuse. Then the question is not just what is justice, but indeed the question is how to talk or how to speak to tyrants, and what to do if you are in a tyranny, and if you are in a minority position in a tyranny. And then this question is indeed no longer, so to say, the timeless question of higher philosophy, but it's indeed a very political question, which we can see at the background of Plato. And of course, this is a question which also very much relates to the situation we live in today, and it could even go further. So we could ask how this question then influenced also the liberal tradition that goes back to Kant. So this will be the last part of my talk, where I also show that Kant, so the founder of the liberal tradition, had implicit discussion with Plato on this very question, what to do if you live in difficult times, and how can you speak either to tyrants or to monarchs? What do you do in this way? So this is not just a philosophical question, but this is also very much a political question. Thank you so much. You're welcome.